The emergency council chamber on Valdris Prime buzzed with tension as representatives from 12 different species gathered around the crystalline table. Admiral Zektar of the Hegemony Navy slammed his four-armed fist against the surface, creating ripples of light across its surface. "You're telling me that one human destroyed an entire mining station?" His voice carried the incredulous tone of someone who had seen too many battles to believe in fairy tales. Commander Yila of the Scientific Division nodded grimly, her serpentine head swaying as she accessed the data streams flowing through her neural implants. Station Omega-7 was completely obliterated. 15,000 personnel, gone. The only evidence we have is this. She gestured, and a holographic display materialized above the table. The assembled council watched in silence as the recording played. A small, unremarkable vessel approached the massive mining platform. The ship was primitive by galactic standards, using chemical propulsion and basic energy shields. It looked like something a child might build from scrap metal. The vessel ignored all hail frequencies, Yila continued. It simply approached the station and docked. 43 minutes later, the entire facility exploded from within. General Krex, a towering Vorthan with crimson scales, leaned forward. "What about the security footage from inside the station?" "That's where it gets interesting." Yila manipulated the display, showing grainy internal camera feeds. A figure in a basic environmental suit moved through the corridors. The being was bipedal, roughly 2 meters tall, with no visible weapons. "Watch carefully," Yila said. The figure encountered a security checkpoint manned by 6 heavily armed Hegemony soldiers. Without breaking stride, the human moved through them like they weren't there. The soldiers fired their plasma rifles, but somehow every shot missed. The human reached out with bare hands and touched each soldier in turn. They collapsed immediately. "How?" breathed Counselor Vex, her chitinous mandibles clicking nervously. "We don't know. Medical analysis of the body shows complete neural system shutdown, but no physical damage. No toxins, no energy weapons discharge, nothing. They just died." The recording continued. The human moved deeper into the station, past automated defense systems that seemed to malfunction in its presence. Blast doors sealed themselves open. Automated turrets rotated away. Environmental hazard warnings flashed and, then, went silent. Admiral Zektar studied the footage with growing unease. In his 3 centuries of military service, he had never seen anything like this. What was the human after? "The antimatter containment facility," Yila replied. "It went straight there, as if it knew exactly where to find it." The final moments of the recording showed the human standing before a massive containment vessel. It placed both hands on the surface and simply stood there for several minutes. Then, it walked away. The containment failed 17 minutes later, Yila explained as the hologram dissolved. The resulting explosion vaporized everything within a 50-kilometer radius. The council chamber fell silent. Each representative processed the implications in their own way. The Hegemony had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 2 millennia. They had absorbed dozens of species, crushed countless rebellions, and established an empire that stretched across 300 systems. But humans were supposed to be contained. Counselor Tharn, eldest of the assembled beings, finally spoke. His voice carried the weight of centuries. "I thought we had eliminated the human problem a generation ago." "So did we all," Admiral Zektar replied grimly. "The quarantine around Earth was absolute. No ships in or out for 50 years. Commander Yila shifted uncomfortably. "There's something else. We've detected similar incidents across 17 different systems over the past month. Always the same pattern, a single human, minimal technology, maximum destruction." General Krex's scales darkened with anger. "Impossible. Humans don't have faster-than-light travel. They're primitives, barely out of their home system when we contained them." "That's what we believed," Yila said. "But the evidence suggests otherwise." Admiral Zektar called up his own displays, showing strategic maps of Hegemony space. Red markers indicated the sites of recent attacks. "Look at the pattern. These aren't random strikes. Someone is targeting our most important facilities. Antimatter production, quantum communication relays, naval shipyards. A single human couldn't coordinate attacks across this much space," protested Counselor Vex. "It would take hundreds of them, working in perfect synchronization.
Unless, Counselor Tharn said slowly, it's the same human.
The chamber erupted in skeptical chatter. Multiple species voiced their objections in their native languages, creating a cacophony of doubt and disbelief. Admiral Zektar raised his hand for silence.
Explain.
Human biology is poorly understood, Tharn continued. When we first encountered them 50 years ago, our scientists noted unusual neural patterns, quantum entanglement in their cellular structure that we couldn't explain. We assumed it was evolutionary debris, meaningless complexity left over from their primitive development.
Commander Yila accessed her files again. I've been reviewing those old reports.
The lead xenobiologist, Dr. Kelm, filed several warnings about human potential that were dismissed by the military command.
What kind of warnings? General Krex demanded. Dr.
Kelm believed that human consciousness operates on multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. He theorized that individual humans might be capable of existing in several quantum states at once, essentially allowing them to be in multiple places simultaneously. The council chamber filled with uncomfortable silence. If true, it would explain how a single human could conduct coordinated attacks across vast distances. Admiral Zektar stood, his imposing figure casting shadows across the crystalline table.
Theoretical possibilities aside, we have a real problem.
Our most secure facilities are being destroyed by an enemy we apparently don't understand.
What do we know about this specific human?
Yila manipulated her displays again. Based on biomass analysis from the destroyed facilities, we believe we're dealing with a single individual. Human male, approximately 30 to 35 standard years old.
Height between 1.8 and 2.0 meters.
Beyond that, nothing definitive.
How did it escape Earth? General Krex asked. Unknown.
Our monitoring stations around Earth show no departures. The quarantine fleet reports no breaches.
Yet somehow, this human is operating freely throughout hegemony space. Counselor Vex clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. What if the human never left Earth?
The others stared at her.
Admiral Zektar's expression darkened. Explain.
If human consciousness can exist in multiple dimensional states, perhaps this individual found a way to project itself across space without physical travel. The body we see on the security footage might be a quantum projection, solid enough to interact with physical matter but not bound by normal spatial limitations.
Commander Yila nodded slowly.
That would explain the lack of life support equipment.
A quantum projection wouldn't need to breathe or maintain body temperature.
It would also explain how the human bypassed our security systems, added General Krex.
If it exists partially outside normal spacetime, our sensors might not detect it properly.
Admiral Zektar began pacing, his heavy footsteps echoing in the chamber.
Assuming all of this is true, how do we stop something that can appear anywhere, destroy our facilities at will, and then simply vanish? The traditional response, suggested General Krex, would be to glass Earth entirely. If the human is projecting from there, destroying the planet would eliminate the threat. Counselor Tharn shook his ancient head. We tried that approach 50 years ago. Our dreadnought fleets couldn't even approach Earth's solar system. Something destroyed them before they got within weapons range. Something?
Admiral Zektar stopped pacing.
We never determined what happened to the 7th and 9th fleets. They simply stopped responding to communications as they approached Earth. No wreckage was ever found. The implications hung heavy in the air. The hegemony's military might was legendary. Each dreadnought fleet contained enough firepower to crack a planet's surface.
For two such fleets to simply vanish suggested that humans possessed defensive capabilities far beyond what anyone had imagined.
Commander Yila brought up another display. There's more. Intelligence reports indicate that the attacks are increasing in frequency and scope. Whatever this human is doing, it's building towards something larger. Such as? Admiral Zektar demanded. Our analysis suggests that the destroyed facilities form a pattern. If the human continues on its current trajectory, the next logical target would be the central command station at Nexus Point.
The council chamber fell deathly quiet.
Nexus Point was the nerve center of the entire hegemony.
From there, military operations across 300 systems were coordinated.
Its destruction would cripple their ability to maintain order throughout the Empire.
General Krex slammed his fist against the table.
Unacceptable. We'll station the entire 4th Fleet at Nexus Point. Let this human try to destroy a fully armed battle station protected by 100 warships. With respect, General, Counselor Tharn interjected, our conventional forces have proven ineffective against this threat. Perhaps we should consider alternative approaches. Such as? Negotiation. The word hung in the air like a curse. Admiral Zektar's 4 faces twisted into expressions of disgust. Negotiate with terrorists? With someone who has demonstrated the ability to strike at will against our most protected facilities, Tharn corrected. Someone who possesses capabilities we don't understand and can't defend against. Pride is a luxury we may no longer be able to afford. Commander Yila nodded thoughtfully. The counselor has a point. This human hasn't targeted civilian populations or colonies. Only military and industrial facilities. There might be a political motivation we can address. You're suggesting we capitulate to the demands of a single primitive? General Krex's voice dripped with contempt. I'm suggesting we try to understand what those demands might be, Yila replied. Before this human decides that Nexus Point isn't enough. Admiral Zektar resumed his pacing, weighing options that all seemed inadequate. The hegemony had ruled through strength for millennia. Their military doctrine was simple, overwhelming force applied with precision and ruthlessness. But, how do you apply overwhelming force to an enemy you can't catch, can't predict, and can't understand? How long until this human reaches Nexus Point, he asked finally. Based on the pattern of previous attacks, approximately 72 hours, Yila responded. Very well. General Krex, deploy the 4th Fleet to Nexus Point immediately. Full battle readiness. If this human wants to attack our command center, we'll be waiting. And if conventional forces prove inadequate? Tharn asked. Admiral Zektar's expression hardened. Then, we'll find out exactly what we're dealing with. Commander Yila, I want every piece of information about human capabilities analyzed. Contact Dr. Kelm if he's still alive. Review every piece of data from the initial contact 50 years ago. Find me something we can use. What about negotiation? Tharn pressed. After we see what our military can accomplish. The hegemony doesn't negotiate from a position of weakness. As the council dispersed, each representative carried the weight of uncertainty. For the first time in living memory, the hegemony faced an enemy they didn't understand. An enemy that might be more dangerous than anyone had imagined. In the depths of space, automated systems began the process of assembling the 4th Fleet. 500 of the most advanced warships ever constructed would converge on Nexus Point within 60 hours. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Together, they represented the pinnacle of hegemony military technology. Against a single human who had already proven that conventional thinking no longer applied, they might not be enough. But Admiral Zektar had built his career on the principle that enough firepower could solve any problem. He was about to discover whether that principle had limits. On a small blue planet at the edge of known space, something stirred. Something that had been watching, waiting, and planning. The next phase was about to begin. Captain Sarachin stared at the tactical display showing the assembled hegemony fleet. 500 warships arranged in perfect formation around Nexus Point, their weapons systems powered and ready. Each vessel bristled with enough firepower to level a city. They're certainly taking this seriously, she murmured to herself. The bridge of the ESV Defiant was small by galactic standards, designed for a crew of 12. But, today, Sarah worked alone. She had been alone for the past month, ever since beginning her mission to cripple the hegemony's infrastructure. The irony wasn't lost on her that she sat aboard humanity's most advanced starship while the aliens below assumed she was operating without technology. They were right, in a way. The ship wasn't what made her dangerous. Computer, analysis of enemy fleet composition, she said aloud. The ship's AI responded in a calm, synthesized voice. Fleet consists of 412 heavy cruisers, 63 dreadnoughts, and 25 command ships. Total crew complement approximately 2 million beings. Estimated combined firepower sufficient to crack a planet's crust. Sarah nodded absently. The numbers were impressive, but irrelevant. Numbers had always been irrelevant when humans put their minds to something. Computer, display historical files. Battle of Thermopylae. David vs. Goliath. The Alamo. Displaying historical records of asymmetric warfare involving human participants. Images flowed across the screen. 300 Spartans holding a mountain pass against hundreds of thousands. A young shepherd defeating a giant with a simple stone. A handful of defenders making their final stand against overwhelming odds. Humans have always specialized in impossible victories, Sarah said quietly. Time to add another one to the list. She closed her eyes and felt the familiar sensation of her consciousness expanding beyond the confines of her physical form. This was humanity's true gift, discovered only after the hegemony had cut them off from the galaxy. Isolation had forced them to look inward, to explore the quantum nature of consciousness that other species either couldn't access or didn't know existed. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been the first to successfully project her consciousness across interstellar distances. The process had killed her physical body, but her mind had traveled to Alpha Centauri and back, gathering intelligence about hegemony activities. Other volunteers had followed, mapping the alien empire's weaknesses while their bodies remained safely on Earth. Sarah was different. She had learned to maintain her physical form while projecting quantum duplicates of herself across space. Each projection was completely real, capable of interacting with matter, but linked to her primary consciousness through quantum entanglement. It was exhausting work, requiring absolute mental discipline, but it allowed her to be in multiple places simultaneously. The aliens thought they were tracking one human. In reality, Sarah had 17 active projections operating throughout hegemony space. Computer, status report on Operation Shepherd. Phase 1 complete. All primary targets destroyed or disabled. Phase 2 ready to commence on your authorization. Sarah opened her eyes and studied the hegemony fleet again. They had positioned themselves perfectly, creating overlapping fields of fire that could theoretically destroy anything approaching Nexus Point. Their tactical formation was flawless by conventional standards. Unfortunately for them, Sarah had stopped thinking conventionally a long time ago. Authorize Phase 2, she said. The moment the words left her lips, Sarah felt her consciousness fracture into multiple streams. 17 different versions of herself materialized throughout the hegemony fleet, each one appearing inside a different ship. The quantum projections were invisible to the alien sensors, existing in a dimensional space slightly offset from normal reality. Through 17 sets of eyes, Sarah surveyed her targets. The bridge of a dreadnought, where Admiral Korthak commanded the fleet. The engine room of a heavy cruiser, where antimatter containment fields hummed with barely controlled energy. The weapons control center of a command ship, where targeting computers tracked potential threats in the surrounding space. The aliens had no idea she was already among them. Sarah began her work methodically, starting with the outermost ships in the formation. Her projections moved through bulkheads as if they were made of air, approaching critical systems with practiced efficiency. A touch here, a quantum field manipulation there, and essential components began to fail in cascading sequences. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Korthak received the first damage reports with growing confusion. Sir, the destroyer Vengeance reports complete engine failure, his communications officer announced. How is that possible? We're not under attack. Unknown, sir. All systems were functioning normally, then, simply shut down simultaneously. Before Korthak could respond, more reports flooded in. Ships throughout the fleet were experiencing critical failures with no apparent cause. Weapons systems offline. Life support fluctuating. Navigation computers crashing. Sir, the tactical officer called out, his voice tight with fear, something's wrong with the containment fields on Deck 7. Korthak felt a chill run through his crystalline spine. Deck 7 housed the antimatter storage for the ship's primary weapons. If containment failed, evacuate that section immediately, he ordered. Engineering teams to the ship shuddered violently as the antimatter containment collapsed. The explosion vaporized the entire weapons array and sent shockwaves through the vessel's superstructure. Emergency alarms screamed as atmosphere began venting through hull breaches. Damage report. Korthak demanded. Weapons offline, sir. Propulsion failing. We're dead in space. Similar scenes played out across the hegemony fleet. Sarah's projections moved from ship to ship like ghosts, leaving destruction in their wake. She didn't kill crew members unnecessarily, her targets were always systems, not people. But the effect was the same.
One by one, the most powerful warships in the galaxy were reduced to floating debris. The aliens tried to fight back, of course. Automated defense systems activated throughout the fleet, flooding corridors with toxic gas and energy barriers. Security teams rushed to investigate the system failures, their weapons ready to engage any intruders. They found nothing. How do you fight an enemy that exists partially outside normal spacetime? Sarah's projections passed through their defenses like they weren't there, untouchable and unstoppable. On the command ship Imperator, Fleet Admiral Zektar watched his tactical display with growing horror as ship after ship went dark. Red warning icons spread across the screen like a plague. "What's happening?" he demanded of his staff. "Unknown, sir," his chief of staff replied. "Ships are reporting catastrophic system failures with no external cause." "The human?" "No signs of any approaching vessels, sir. No energy signatures, no weapons fire. Ships are simply dying." Zektar stared at the display as another dreadnought winked out of existence. The explosion was visible through the viewports, a brief star that illuminated the surrounding darkness. "How many ships have we lost?" 43 and counting, sir. All to internal system failures." The Admiral's four hands gripped the command console as he processed the implications. His fleet was being destroyed from within by an enemy he couldn't see, couldn't detect, and couldn't fight. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "incoming transmission on all frequencies. Source unknown. Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the face of a human female. She appeared to be sitting in a starship's command center, her expression calm and professional. "Admiral Zektar, I presume," Sarah said. "My name is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. I believe we need to talk." Zektar found his voice after a moment of shock. "You're responsible for this?" "I'm responsible for protecting my species from genocide," Sarah replied. "You invaded our space 50 years ago, quarantined our planet, and threatened to destroy us if we didn't submit to your rule. We chose a different path. Your people are primitives. You don't have the technology for this kind of operation." Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You're correct. We don't have better ships or bigger guns. But we have something you don't understand, the ability to think beyond the conventional limitations you've imposed on yourselves." As she spoke, warships in Zektar's fleet suffered critical failures. The tactical display now showed over 100 vessels either destroyed or disabled. "What do you want?" Zektar asked through gritted teeth. "First, the immediate withdrawal of all hegemony forces from Earth's solar system. Second, formal recognition of humanity as a sovereign species with the right to self-determination. Third, reparations for the damage caused by your 50-year occupation." "Impossible. The hegemony doesn't negotiate with terrorists." "I'm not a terrorist, Admiral. I'm a soldier defending my home. And I'm afraid you don't have much choice in the matter." On cue, the Imperator's engines failed. Emergency lighting bathed the bridge in red as backup power systems struggled to compensate for the primary generators going offline. "How?" Zektar whispered. "Human consciousness operates on quantum levels your scientists never learned to access," Sarah explained. "We can exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. What you see on your screen is just one manifestation of my presence. I have projections throughout your fleet, inside your ships, beyond your ability to detect or defend against." Another explosion lit up the void as a dreadnought's reactor went critical. The Admiral watched his most powerful warship die in silence. "This is impossible," he said finally. "Your mistake was assuming that impossible means anything to humans," Sarah replied. "We've built our entire civilization on achieving the impossible. We went to the moon with computers less powerful than your calculators. We split the atom with slide rules. We learned to fly by watching birds. When you cut us off from the galaxy, you just gave us more time to figure out what we were really capable of." "You can't destroy the entire fleet," Zektar protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "Actually, I can. But I'd prefer not to. Those ships contain 2 million lives, and, despite what you might think, humans don't enjoy killing. We're quite good at it when necessary, but we prefer solutions that don't require mass slaughter." The tactical display now showed fewer than half the original fleet still functional. Those ships that remained operational were experiencing cascading system failures as Sarah's projections continued their methodical destruction. "What guarantee do I have that you'll honor any agreement?" Zektar asked. "You have my word as a human being," Sarah replied. "We may be many things, Admiral, but we keep our promises. When we say we'll do something, we do it. When we say we'll stop doing something, we stop." "And if I refuse?" Sarah's expression hardened. "Then, I'll demonstrate exactly why you should never threaten humanity's survival. I'll destroy your fleet, then your space stations, then your shipyards. I'll cripple your ability to project power until your empire collapses from within. And I'll do it all from the bridge of this one ship, using capabilities you still don't understand." The bridge of the Imperator shuddered as another critical system failed. The artificial gravity flickered, causing several officers to grab onto their stations for support. "You're bluffing," Zektar said, but even he didn't believe it anymore. "Am I? Look at your tactical display, Admiral. Look at what one human has accomplished in the past hour. Now imagine what all of humanity could achieve if you force us to abandon restraint." Zektar stared at the screen showing his dying fleet. In 60 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. His tactical training, his strategic doctrine, his understanding of warfare itself, all of it was useless against an enemy that didn't follow the rules of engagement he understood. "I need to consult with the High Council," he said finally. "You have 12 hours, Sarah replied. "After that, I resume operations." "And, Admiral? Don't mistake my willingness to negotiate for weakness. Humans invented the concept of mutually assured destruction. We're very comfortable with scenarios where everyone loses if we can't reach an agreement." The transmission ended, leaving Zektar alone with his thoughts and his dying fleet. Around Nexus Point, the most powerful military formation in galactic history continued its slow dissolution. Ship after ship fell silent as Sarah's projections completed their work. But she was careful to leave enough vessels functional to carry survivors, enough firepower intact to let the Admiral maintain some dignity in retreat. Sarah understood psychology as well as quantum mechanics. Crushing an enemy completely often led to desperate revenge attempts. But defeating them while offering them a path to save face? That led to lasting peace. The next 12 hours would determine whether the galaxy was ready for a new kind of civilization. One that didn't rely on overwhelming force to solve its problems. One that understood the true meaning of human ingenuity. The emergency session of the Hegemony High Council convened 8 hours after Admiral Zektar's fleet had been decimated. The Grand Chamber on Valdris Prime, usually a symbol of imperial power and unity, now felt like a tomb. Representatives from 12 species sat in stunned silence as they processed reports from Nexus Point. Chancellor Vortak, supreme leader of the hegemony, reviewed the tactical reports with growing disbelief. 412 ships disabled or destroyed. By a single human. The fleet still has 88 functional vessels, General Krex reported, his scales having shifted to a pale gray color that indicated extreme stress among his species. But they're experiencing intermittent system failures. The human appears to be maintaining projections throughout the remaining ships. Projections, Chancellor Vortak repeated the word like it tasted bitter. We're being defeated by ghosts. Dr. Kelm, the elderly xenobiologist who had studied humans 50 years earlier, sat at the far end of the council table. His warnings about human potential had been dismissed decades ago. Now, at nearly 200 years old, he found no satisfaction in being proven right. "I tried to warn you," he said quietly. "Human neural architecture is unlike anything else we've encountered. They evolved as persistence hunters, predators who could track prey across vast distances by maintaining perfect mental maps of their environment. Their consciousness naturally operates across multiple dimensional planes. Why didn't our scientists detect these capabilities during the initial invasion?" demanded Counselor Tharn. "Because humans didn't know they had them," Dr. Kelm replied. "These abilities only manifest under extreme stress, when survival is threatened. Our quarantine forced them to explore aspects of their own consciousness they'd never needed to access before." Chancellor Vortak activated the holographic display showing Earth's solar system. "Our monitoring stations show no increased activity around Earth. No additional ships, no new technology. How is one human projecting itself across thousands of light years?" Dr. Kelm stood slowly, his ancient joints protesting.
Because distance is irrelevant to quantum consciousness.
If human awareness can exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, then space and time become navigational tools rather than barriers.
You're saying this human can be anywhere in the galaxy instantly?
General Krex's voice cracked with disbelief.
I'm saying this human might be everywhere in the galaxy simultaneously.
What we're seeing at Nexus Point could be just one manifestation of a consciousness that spans multiple quantum states.
The implications hung heavy in the chamber's recycled air. If Dr. Kelm was correct, then humanity possessed capabilities that rendered conventional military power meaningless. What about the human's demands? Asked Counselor Yila. Withdrawal from Earth's system, recognition of sovereignty, reparations. Are they reasonable? Chancellor Vorthack's expression hardened. The hegemony has ruled this sector for 2 millennia. We don't capitulate to the demands of primitives. These primitives just destroyed the largest military formation in our history, Tharn pointed out. Perhaps it's time to reconsider our definition of primitive.
Sir, an aide interrupted, approaching the Chancellor's throne with obvious reluctance.
Admiral Zektar is requesting emergency communication from Nexus Point. Put him through.
The air above the council table shimmered, revealing the bridge of the Imperator. Admiral Zektar stood amid flickering emergency lighting, his 4 faces showing the strain of the past 8 hours.
Chancellor, the situation here is deteriorating. We've lost another 15 ships in the past hour. The humans' projections are becoming more active, more destructive. Have you attempted to negotiate?
Tharn asked.
The human isn't responding to communication attempts.
She gave us 12 hours.
We have 4 hours remaining. Chancellor Vorthack leaned forward on his throne. Admiral, what is your military assessment? Can we fight this enemy?
Zektar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of professional defeat. Sir, I've served in the Hegemony Navy for 60 years.
I've commanded fleets in 17 major conflicts. I've never encountered an enemy we couldn't engage through conventional means.
He paused, staring directly at the Chancellor.
We cannot fight something that doesn't exist in the same dimensional space as our weapons. Recommendations? Negotiate. Give the humans what they want.
Our pride isn't worth the lives of every being in this fleet. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Several representatives shouted objections in their native languages, their translations overlapping into an incomprehensible din. Chancellor Vorthack raised his hand for silence.
Dr. Kelm, in your professional opinion, what are the long-term implications if we accept human demands?
The old scientist considered his words carefully.
Humans have demonstrated capabilities we don't understand and can't counter.
But they've also shown restraint. This Captain Chen could have destroyed your entire fleet in minutes, but she's chosen to disable ships rather than destroy them.
She's preserving life while making her point. Which tells us what? That humans might be more interested in coexistence than domination. They want to be left alone, not to rule the galaxy.
General Krex slammed his fist against the table.
You're suggesting we reward terrorism with concessions?
I'm suggesting we acknowledge a superior force and adapt accordingly, Dr. Kelm replied calmly.
The alternative is the complete destruction of our military capability.
Chancellor Vorthack stood and began pacing the length of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the vast space as he weighed options that all seemed inadequate.
What guarantee do we have that humans won't use these capabilities against us in the future?
None, Dr. Kelm admitted.
But what choice do we have? We can't defend against something we can't detect or understand.
4 hours later, the surviving ships of Admiral Zektar's fleet received new orders.
The withdrawal from Earth's solar system would begin immediately. The quarantine that had isolated humanity for 50 years would be lifted. Recognition of human sovereignty would be formalized through official diplomatic channels. Captain Sarah Chan received the hegemony's surrender while sitting in her command chair aboard the ESB Defiant.
The quantum projection she had maintained throughout the alien fleet slowly dissolved as she recalled her consciousness to its primary form.
Computer, status report on Hegemony Fleet.
88 vessels remaining functional.
No hostile actions detected. Fleet is beginning withdrawal from Nexus Point.
Sarah allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The mission had succeeded beyond her best projections. Not only had she forced the hegemony to terms, but she had done so while minimizing casualties. Fewer than 3,000 alien personnel had died in the engagement, most of them in unavoidable accidents when their ship systems failed. Computer, open channel to Admiral Zektar. The viewscreen flickered to life, showing the alien commander's bridge. The emergency lighting had been replaced with normal illumination, and repair crews were working to restore damaged systems.
Admiral, Sarah said.
I want you to know that I take no pleasure in what happened here today. Zektar studied her face through the screen.
Then, why do it?
Because 50 years ago, your people came to our world with the choice of submission or extinction.
We chose neither. We chose to become something you couldn't destroy or ignore. What happens now? Sarah considered the question carefully. Now we learn to coexist. Humans have no interest in ruling the galaxy, Admiral.
We just want the right to exist in it on our own terms.
And if other species threaten you? Then, they'll discover what the hegemony learned today. Humans are very good at solving problems that seem impossible to solve.
The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts.
Through the viewports of the Defiant, she could see the hegemony fleet departing.
Massive warships that had terrorized dozens of worlds now limped away from a battle they never really understood.
But Sarah's work wasn't finished. The successful demonstration at Nexus Point was just the beginning. Other hostile species would test humanity's resolve.
Other empires would challenge their right to exist.
Computer, set course for Earth. It's time to go home.
As the Defiant entered hyperspace, Sarah reflected on the strange turn her life had taken. 6 months ago, she had been a simple cargo pilot, hauling supplies between Earth's colonies. The quantum consciousness training had been voluntary, part of humanity's desperate search for an edge against their alien oppressors.
Now she was humanity.